Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
I
Krishna.
welcome you all for this another new episode of Life Questions Insights from Gita. There is so much of learning, so much of amazing knowledge in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is the complete guide of the life. And when we have the Gita Acharyas like Tayal sir and Manu ma'am, the explanations are more logical with the reference of specific words from the specific chapters of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So let's start our session with a question and answer rounds. For that, we welcome our very eminent Gita Acharyas, Tayal sir and Manu ma'am in our studio. Welcome, sir. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Tayal sir has been promoting Srimad Bhagavad Gita's teachings for past 15 years. And during pandemic lockdown, they have started their online teachings also, which the people are learning with full joy and excitement from their homes. So it's real good time to enroll for these online courses. So let's start with our question. The first question: what is an action? Kindly explain it elaborately. So I would request Manu ma'am to kindly answer to this question.
Hare Krishna. An action is to do something or to do anything, whether it is just blinking an eyelid or even playing with an idea mentally. That is also action. And Krishna said in Gita that nahi kaschit shanapepi jatu tishtati akarma krit. Garyate hi avashya karma. Sarvahe prakriti jair budai. That means that a person, every living creature, is forced to engage in activity, in action, according to the modes of nature which are present within him. And those modes are Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. And a person cannot even stay for a moment without engaging in some action or another. Because these modes of nature are so powerful that they impel a person towards action. And Krishna says further to Arjun that your welfare lies in performing the prescribed duties which are prescribed for you according to Varnashram system by me. And it is better to perform your duty, better to be engaged in action rather than doing nothing. And that way you cannot even maintain your body if you don't engage in the slightest of work. How will your body be maintained? How will you stay alive? Like, so he is advising Arjun that action is very necessary, and he goes on to classify actions into three categories. First is first is called just action or karma, but its quality is that those actions are prompted by worldly desires. The people engaging in those actions, they are having desire for the fruits of their actions. They want something in return. And even if these actions are according to scriptures, they are prescribed actions like yajna, dan, and tap, etc. Even if they are those, actions within the scope of good actions, but the desire for worldly acquisition is behind them, then the actions will not be considered good according to Krishna. They will not be considered good. But the person performing them does not receive any punishment, but the reward he gets is not lasting. Then the second category of actions is prohibited actions, or they are called as vikarm. Vikarm in Gita, and Swami Ram Sukdas ji explains that actions which go against the teaching of scriptures are called vikar, negative actions, evil actions which have been prohibited, like falsehood, fraud, robbery, violence, envy, hatred, etc. All those negative. When the actions are prompted by those negative attitudes, then naturally they become evil actions, and fruit of evil actions is going to be evil. I mean, you will get evil results for the evil actions. Maybe you have to go into lower life forms like animals, birds, etc. Or you even have to, maybe you have to face the fires of hell for your evil actions. And then Krishna talks about the elevated actions or the perfect actions, which are the actions of a karmi yogi. I will not define karmi yogi over here because that will lengthen out the answer. If somebody asks, we can always talk about it. But then the definition of a karmi yogi is anyway implicit. When we talk about akarm is that action in which a man engages because he wants to work for the welfare of society, for the welfare of his fellow creatures, and to eliminate their sufferings or to reduce their sufferings. And in his attitude, there is not the slightest desire for his own advancement in any way. He does not desire fame or glory or anything at all for himself. He remains in the attitude of equanimity. That is one of the greatest virtues which about which Krishna has preached in many places in Gita. Equanimity or Samta, that is the familiar name with which we know it. So the Karma Yogi remains in Samta, and he is free from all worldly desires for himself. All his desires are for the good of his fellow creatures, and most importantly, he does not nurture the slightest desire for fruits of his action. This is called relinquishment of fruits of action. So the actions which are committed with this attitude, they become a karma. That is, they do not go into a person's good record or evil record. You know, our actions are categorized, and in return for our good actions, we get good results. In return for our evil actions, we get evil results. So that record will not be growing in the case of that person, and he will be that way. His previous actions, even the record of his previous actions will be subsequently reduced, and subsequently it will be destroyed if he continues to engage himself in selfless service of society. So these are the categorizations which Krishna has given. Of course, there are other ways in which also actions have been classified in Gita, but on this platform at this moment, I think this is a sufficient categorization.
Very beautifully explained, ma'am. I never knew this, the different types of actions, and the selfless actions, the very selfish actions, and the very evil actions. So,
Yeah.
and what is the result of doing all this? You beautifully explained it, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. So now let's move to our next. So this program is now not only limited to the Indian territories. Our first question from Western audience, Ashok Kumarji Mittal, USA based. So the question goes like this: if someone makes effort for attaining moksha, he sets a target, that is, makes a sankalp. With such a sankalp, how can he attain moksha? If he renounces sankalp, how can he keep on putting in efforts? So I'll request Tayal sir to kindly answer to this question.
There are two types of sankalp. First of all, Mittal Sahab, Poonam ji, and all the audience, I prostrate before all of you. You are all lovers of Gita. Mittal Sahib, your question is very, very relevant. Let's understand Sankalp. There are two types of Sankalp. One is, one category would be of desirable Sankalp, another category would be of undesirable Sankalp. Non-desirable Sankalps are those which are made for, or rather their goal is for attaining material objects or meeting persons which are to our own benefit or for our own pleasure. For such a sankalp, God says, Yas sarve samarambha, kam sankalp varjitaha, jnana agni dagda karmanam tamahu panditam buddha. Those who renounce desires and sankalp and begin their activities, and those whose activities are burned in the fire of knowledge are termed as Pandit by the learned scholars. For the desirable sankalps are those which are for the benefit of others or for the service of Lord. The striver doesn't work without any goal. He definitely has a goal, but that goal is on very high pedestal. He wants to realize salvation or a still higher goal to attain exclusive devotional service for Lord Krishna or Lord Rama. So making a sankalp for attaining moksha is desirable. You can make it, but just refrain from those activities which do not contribute to your attaining the goal. And don't think if you have made the sankalp, you won't be able to attain salvation. You certainly will be able to attain salvation, but you got to keep to it. That's it.
Wow, that's very fantastic. Means uh, we can again we have two types of sankalpas. One we can say like selfish, done for own
Benefit.
benefits, and other is unselfish. Selfish also will again category. If you are wanting for the moksha for yourself, then that becomes the desirable sankalpa. That's what you want to say. Am I right, sir?
Right,
Very nice.
Poonamji.
It's really beautiful. So again, the second question is also same from Ashok Kumarji Mittal from USA, and he's asking. It is said that one should work without an eye on fruits. That is what Gita also says. But everyone is fed with the fruits. If I am if I complete an assignment, I am told my score. Hence, everyone becomes eager to know fruits of action. How can it be explained? So I'll again request Tayal sir to please answer.
Wonderful query. Truly great inquisitiveness, Mittal Sahab. Now let us understand what do we really mean by eyes on the fruits. Having an eye on the fruit means getting attached to the results. And whether you are attached to the results or not would be known only by external and internal reactions to those results which are obtained. External reaction would be in accordance with the internal reaction. If you are disturbed internally by the results that you get, or become aggressive, or insist on having your own way, you are then attached to the results. If you do not care very much about whatever the results come, and the results would certainly come, they cannot be avoided if you performed an action. That result, if it is in accordance with your wishes, or it could be contrary to your wishes, but the striver maintains equanimity in both the results. That is, he neither gets disturbed nor feels excessively happy about it. In fact, he maintains equanimity as in the previous question Manu ma'am had described. Gita also says, Sukh dukhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayu tato yuddhai yujjasva navam pap mavapasayasi. That is, this is the way to perform action. Sukh dukhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayu. Striver should work with the attitude of remaining even-mindedness in happiness or sorrow, profit or loss, victory or defeat. He should keep on performing his duties with this attitude, and then the sins would not get attached to him. There is another verse in this context. Yes, Poonamji wanted to say something?
No, this is giving me very wow effect. Okay, like this.
Okay. Yeah, there is another verse in Gita in relation to this. Duren hya varam karm buddhi yoga dhananjay buddhau sharan man vich kripna phal hetva. Those who are who are heaping faults on others, in fact, one should not become the cause of action. One should not have the attitude of becoming the cause for action, because those who have such an attitude are wretched misers in the opinion of Krishna. Therefore, maintain even-mindedness, and those who crave for results are wretched misers. Now, how to maintain that equanimity? By accepting that results are not in your hands. Results are, are normally obtained in the form of congenial circumstances or adverse circumstances. These could be these results could be of the actions performed just now, or action performed sometime in the past, maybe in this birth, or maybe in some other birth in the past. Now, these are those actions which result in their result, those results which are on account of actions performed in the past, those are called prarabdha. Now, you have no knowledge of your previous actions. That is, actions of your past lives. Hence, the results are not in your hand. Those are according to the God's tenets. That is, the laws which have been formed by the God, the results would be obtained according to that. Just remember, God loves us all very dearly. So, without getting disturbed, just accept the results, whatever they may be, they would be to your benefit. How could our eternal Father ever give us such a thing which is not to our benefit? By accepting these two things, that is, the results are given according to the rules laid down by Krishna, laid down by the Lord, and Lord loves us all the time very dearly. You could attain equanimity if you just keep trying. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's very nice, very nice. I mean, it gives me real solace feeling deep inside that, uh, well, and it also reminds me of one single line which I really remember: "Karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana." That you can only do your karmas, but you have no,
Right.
you know, on
Right.
act fruit of action. You have no right onto that. So just keep on working and keep on working, and that too with equanimity. And because you told us that equanimity can only be attained through practice, so you just keep on practicing. So very nice, very beautifully explained. So let's proceed further, and let's move on to our next question. The question is, on small matter we get angry. Later on one understands that if it was certainly a mistake to get angry. Everyone wants to perform the best according to his own intelligence, but on account of human weakness, he commits follies. So, how to correct this situation? I think this is a question coming out from inside me also. So, I would also be very interested in this question. So, I would request Manu ma'am to kindly answer.
Uh, Hare Krishna Punam. Even I would like to render my homage to Muditji, to you, and to the people who are participating in this program by sending their questions. So even I would like to prostrate myself before you guys because you are making such an awesome contribution. Yes, in answer to the question which has been put up, I'd like to say that the speaker has admitted in the question itself. I mean, the solution to the question lies within the question itself, because the person has admitted that he realizes later on, after he has maybe made an exhibition of anger or given way to anger in some situation, later on he has realized that it was a mistake. So one has to bring oneself under control, and one has to listen to the voice of one's intellect, which is always guiding us and which is always telling us what would be the right thing to do in any particular situation. And once we accept this, that giving way to anger is a folly and a mistake, then we can proceed to the solution. And I think this happens with all of us, that if we are facing an adverse situation, somebody is behaving with us in a way which is definitely not acceptable. So we feel the signals of anger coming up within ourselves. Of course, in the case of devotees, long-time devotees, and people who have been chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra for a long time, or other names of God, that induces a certain calmness within them, so that they don't even feel anger rising from inside. The anger does not rise. But for most of us, I think for most of us it applies that before we start reacting, we do feel those signals coming up, and we know that we are not finding this at all acceptable, whatever is happening. So that is the time when we have to hold ourselves very calmly. We we don't have to let it show on our face that we are getting we are having some negative reactions from inside. Firstly, one must avoid letting it show on the face or by body language. And um, the next thing is to remember that Krishna has strictly forbidden breaking out into anger. In fact, he has gone so far as to say that Trividham narkasyedam dwaram nashnam atmanah kama krodhas tatha lobhas tasmat etatrayam tyaje. Means that he's telling Arjun that anger is one of the three certain gateways to hell. If a person indulges in anger, then he is going to have to face hell in some form or other. So let's imagine, or let us suppose a situation, a real life situation, in which an employee who's been working very sincerely with a lot of commitment and dedication in a company for a reasonable number of years, maybe 6, 7 years, and suddenly he gets summoned by the boss, and the boss, attacks him with a long series and with a sort of charge sheet about whatever negative things he has been doing, and implicating him in some sort of fraud against the company, and making allegations against his work, his ability, his dedication, and whatnot. What will be the reaction of such a person who is faced by this situation and without any previous warning, whatever? Naturally, the first reaction is shock, disbelief, sharp sense of injustice, indignation, and the desire to retaliate. But if he gives way to that desire, if he gives way to the negative emotions rising within himself, what is going to be the result in terms of profession? His job itself might be endangered, and in terms of health, his blood pressure will rise, his heartbeats will grow more and more frequent and stronger, and his blood will slowly become acidic and poisonous. So there are so many implications of this, and mm, uh, along with this logic which we can apply in this situation, we can remember what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita against this attitude of anger. He has said that krodhat bhavati sammohat smriti vibhrama. Krodhat bhavati sammohat smriti vibhrama. Smriti bhranshat buddhi nasho. Buddhi nashat pranashyati, meaning that anger causes delusion. Delusion gives rise to confusion of memory. Confusion of memory results in loss of reason. And the person who has lost his capacity for reasoning, he is certain to perish. He falls into ruin. So when one remembers how strongly Krishna has spoken against this emotion of anger, one definitely feels the urge to place some sort of control over it, and to rein it inside within ourselves, because in the case of devotees and in the case of karmi yogis, I did not mention karmi yogis earlier, but in the case of devotees, as I've mentioned already, the chanting of God's name and the remembrance of Krishna endows them with so much of calm and so much of inward coolness, that they do not even feel the onset of anger. They do not actually get angry, whatever be the situation facing them. But in our case, I had begun this discussion of solutions earlier, and I was saying that let it not reflect in our face or in our body language. And besides that, Swami Ramsukh Dasji's advice in such a situation is that a person must simply not allow himself to perform any action or to express any emotion or to speak. I mean, one must neither act nor speak under the spell of anger. One simply has to stay cool, calm, remember Krishna, and accept accept that whatever happens in our life, it is a part of Krishna's will, and I must not rebel. I will stay calm, and later on, my inward situation my inward control and coolness and calmness are bound to come back to me. So that's the prescription for control of anger.
Beautifully explained. I'm very sure everyone will agree with me if we would have been knowing this very teaching of Lord Krishna much earlier in our life would have been very, very, you know, uh, cool and calm. That to stay away from the three gateways that take us to the hell, and one of them is anger.
Yes.
Wow. So, and the chain of reaction that you explained to us, that's very beautiful. Thank you so much, ma'am, for letting us know this very teaching of Lord Krishna. So now let's proceed further to our next question. This question is coming from Puneet G. Gangal. He's a retired income tax commissioner, and his question is how to attain stability of mind so that we don't uh, get deviated from goal. I would request Tayal sir to kindly answer.
Puneet Saab, your question is very valuable, but it has some confusion built in because you have set yourself an impossible goal of stabilizing the mind. The mind can be made stable only in meditation. If you do not control your mind will keep running here and there. It'll make you run here and there, and it'll deviate you from your goals. Then the question comes, how do you control it? Arjun had asked a similar question to Krishna. He said, it is indeed very difficult to control it. Controlling the mind is so difficult as to control the blowing wind. Krishna had agreed with his comment and had said, Asanshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigrah Chalam. I agree with you, O Mahabaho, that mind is very chanchal, it's flickering all the time, and to control it is very difficult. Abhyasen tu vairagyen, abhyasen tu kante vairagyen cha grahyati. But by practice and renunciation, you could control it. And what does he mean by practice and renunciation? Practice and vairagya. By practice, he means wherever the mind goes, keep bringing it to your goal without ever getting disturbed about its going here and there. And by vairagya, he means not getting attracted to those situations, those things, those persons which are impediment in your attaining the goal, which do not contribute to your attaining the goal. Once the mind comes under your control, now you can place it wherever you want and for as long as you want. The next question is how to make it convenient in practice. Krishna has given even that answer in Gita. He says, Indriyani paranyahu rindriyebhya param manaha mansastu para buddhir yo buddhe partastu sa. Senses are more subtle and more powerful than the sense objects. And mind is more subtle and more powerful than the senses. Intellect is more powerful and more subtle than the mind. Therefore, intellect can be made to control the mind. You got to form a firm objective, firm goal in your intellect, and then the mind could be brought under the control. If the intellect remains under the control of mind, you're bound to be doomed. So you got to make a firm goal in your intellect, and then you could put the mind towards your goal and would not let it go astray from the goal. So Punitji, I hope I am able to explain it to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Wow. So intellect is that subtlest entity through which we can control our mind, and mind can only be controlled during the meditation. I mean, through the meditation.
Mind can be made stable.
Stable
Omkar.
through the meditations. Very nice.
Right, right,
Thank you
Poonamji.
so much, sir. So, moving ahead, let's take our last question of today's episode. The question goes like this: while we are speaking, we talk of following the truth and religion, but in practice, we perform only that which is generally prevalent in the society. Why don't we always practice the truth? So, this question I would request Manu ma'am to kindly answer.
Well, we all know that it's a very hard task to work on the straight and narrow path of perfect virtue and perfect goodness. The ideal attitude, ideal intentions, and perfect actions are not something which a person can cultivate overnight or over a very short period simply by wishing for it. It is not, it cannot go that way. Of course, we can start implementing uh, like it's a very good thing to be impressed by these ideal attitudes, by discussion of what is ideal, what are ideal intentions and what are ideal actions, etc., perfect actions. It's good to be attracted at least by the discussion of these matters, and their discussion itself is a very elevating experience for a person. When one first begins to study Bhagavad Gita and one listens about the concepts, because the Krishna's words and Krishna's teachings are something which are very different from a lot which we have been hearing earlier. His teachings are different, hatke like, and he when he talks about the ideal attitudes of which a person should cultivate, and he talks um, about following truth, following the path of truth, etc. Then um, his teaching, the depth and the height of his concepts is something which was earlier beyond even our imagination. We were not able to think in so much of detail and reach such heights. And Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita that uh, the the attitudes belonging to divine wealth are those of adhering to truth, adhering to compassion, tolerance, forgiveness, and non-violence. And of course, there is a list of so many other um, uh, admirable traits which a person is advised to cultivate and which a person is advised to put into practice in his life. And on the other side of the coin are those negative traits which are belonging to the demonic property of Krishna, and those are fraud, falsehood, envy, violence, anger, desire, and so on. And these have to be avoided by the person who wants to make his life according to Gita, who wants to put the precepts of Gita into practice in his life. These are to be avoided. Now, how can a person at all times avoid the undesirable qualities and at all times walk on the pathway of truth and truth, forgiveness, non-violence, etc.? Well, it's not that we don't know which path we should follow and which path we should avoid in any situation. I think all of us have that inbuilt knowledge. We may not be knowing in the detail in which it is given in Gita, and not be knowing so deeply, but we do know what to do and what we should not do. But as you have stated in your question, in spite of wanting to follow the right path, we slip away from the right path and we start behaving just as a person, a social animal would would act. We start acting the same way, and we forget all about our admiration of Gita, about the way Krishna has explained attitudes in Gita. So we again slip into those practices which we are used to. Now there are two main reasons for this. One is that the imprint of our past actions, the imprints of our actions in our past lives are there inside us. That is our sanskar or swabhav portion. And they are already there. We have been living in so many lifetimes and dedicating entire lifetimes to the enjoyment of worldly pleasures and to the cultivation of worldly pleasures. I never even remembered our maker, never even remembered our preserver, Krishna. So all those actions which we committed in our past lives, they are working very forcefully within us and driving us towards consumerism and driving us towards attaining maximum pleasures from this life and from this world. And secondly, ever since we are born, we are in the society of most of us. I'm not saying that there are some very fortunate people who, right from their beginning, are born into a family which is inculcating the virtues prescribed in Gita. But those will be very, very rare. That will be a very lucky birth if it happens to us. Many of us do not even hear about these things and do not even hear about these concepts, and there is no cultivation of these deliberate cultivation of these virtues in the family. So we have just been living our lives as everyone else lives, and the values of societies are our own values. We don't have that kind of enhanced perception of how we should act and what we should be practicing in our lives, which we could get from the company, from the association of devoted people, I mean godly people. Like I want to cite one example here. A married couple's anniversary comes along, and of course, people are messaging them left and right and looking forward to a great, I mean, to their throwing a great party on this occasion, and lots of enjoyment, eating and drinking, making merry, etc. Whereas the person who is now influenced by Gita's teachings, his own concept is that he would like to start the day with the worship of Krishna, and he would like to go to nearby poor people living there, and he would like to make them happy, satisfy them with good food, etc., maybe gifts, and he would like to celebrate the evening in Sankirtan with some very selected friends group. But his wife is not in agreement with all this. I mean, she thinks that, what bug has bitten my husband? We were living so happily, and now he's throwing all the enjoyments, away, and he's talking a different language altogether. Maybe she will not agree, or he himself will find that the friend's pressure is too much on him. Many people have even purchased gifts and they are letting them know that they are coming and at what time is the party, what's the venue, and the person just submits, and all those impulses which are coming to him by Krishna's preachings, they are put towards one side, and he again gets into the swing of social life. So this is the kind of thing which happens to many of us. And no one actually likes to be pinpointed or isolated by others because his actions or his attitudes are different. I think many of us have experienced this in our school life or maybe in our college life, that the student who does not act just like everybody else, he or she is made an object of fun or ridicule, or maybe they just discuss that student, in his absence, or maybe at that stage of life, even in his or her presence also, they will be criticizing, poking fun, and all that. And nobody likes to be pinpointed like that. And one normally tries to assimilate into society, and one tries to compromise, and that comes in the way of putting our ideals into practice. But if we ourselves have that very firm resolve that what I speak about, what I discuss, what I think, what I believe to be the right way, I must practice it. Then we should begin our practice of our ideas with some small steps. One cannot do it all in at one go. And the virtue which Krishna has preached to the utmost in Gita, the two virtues which Krishna has preached to the utmost in Gita, one is relinquishment of desire, relinquishing worldly desire, that is nishkamta, and remaining even minded in all situations, that is samta. And these two virtues have been have been stressed a lot by Krishna. Let us start by becoming desireless in maybe just one or two matters. Maybe we just make a resolve that I will give up. I will give up my attachment to those detective serials. I'm very much attracted by them, but I'm going to give it up, and I will not watch those shows. And in the matter of samta, in the matter of remaining even-minded, maybe we start practicing with small steps. That okay, I would otherwise feel miserable in this situation, in whatever is happening today in my life. But because Krishna has said that do not be disturbed and you retain your even-mindedness, therefore I am not giving way to my wretchedness. I am remaining calm and I am accepting it as something sent by Krishna.
Very nice. So with this, we conclude our today's episode, and for this, we thanks our sir and ma'am. And if you all want to decode your problems, your questions, your doubts related to any kind of thing in your life, and that too directly from the teachings of Lord Krishna. So our Acharya, Tayal sir and Manu ma'am will be very happy to answer you all. We are waiting for your questions. You can put up your questions uh, in our YouTube channel on Facebook link. Details are being displayed on the screen. Till our next episode, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare